أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلاة تخرجنا بها من أوحال الوهم وتوضح لنا ما أشكل حتى يفهم إنك تعلم ما نعلم وأنت علام الغيوب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So it says the next hadith عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه. So this hadith related from Abu Hurairah. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the emissary of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, صلاة الرجل في جماعة تزيد على صلاته في سوقه وبيته بضعا وعشرين درجة. It is the prayer of the man in a congregation increases the reward of his prayer. Is greater than the prayer he prays in the marketplace or in his house by 20 or so degrees. And so we've got three situations. You either at home, at work, or you either stay in those places and pray your prayer, or you go to the actual prayer place, the mosque, to pray them. So the scholars have this big debate about, is this about a person praying alone at home, or is he praying in congregation at home? Is he praying alone in the marketplace, or is he praying in congregation in the marketplace? Is he praying, obviously the hadith is explicit about it's in congregation in the mosque. So the predominant opinion is that it's regarding someone who prays in the mosque in prayer, in the mosque in congregation is greater than the 20 or so degrees, regardless if you're praying at home in good congregation or not. So praying at home in congregation is still greater than praying alone in congregation. So they say, especially this whole debate about, is it sunnah mu'akkada to pray in the mosque, or is it wajib, or is it, I don't want to go into argument because it's hard enough to get people to pray in the mosque, to trying to tell them that it's completely impractical today. But some of the scholars who say that it's actually wajib to pray in a congregation, they say that if you're at home, it's you should, and you've got to pray, which is, I'm assuming in the Asian community, the habit is that the woman prays by herself and the man prays by himself. They rarely pray together. That's my assumption. Obviously each household's different, but it's actually required of him to ask his wife to actually pray with him. It's far greater in reward. And if we take the position that it's sunnah mu'akkada, if he leaves that as a habit, it becomes sinful. And even say the woman's prayed, and then he comes and he hasn't prayed, and it's Dhuhr or Asr, she can pray nafil prayers behind him. Sorry, not Asr, sorry, because Asr there's no prayer after that. Dhuhr or not Maghrib, because it's 3 rakas, so it's just Dhuhr or Isha. She can pray nafil behind him for him to get the reward of the Jama'ah. Okay, but try to convince your wife. I don't think most of them say, I'm not praying any more prayers, I'm going to bed, you pray in your own.
No, I know what you're like, you can't be Imam.
No, but the funny thing is, I've noticed about girls, this is a girl, I don't know why it is. When I was in the madrasa, I always found it's really strange, is that when the boys pray behind me, they're fine. When I used to get the girls to pray behind me in congregation, they used to say, always, we're not going to pray behind you, you take too long. They would always say that. And I tried to pray the fastest prayer I could, and then still, some of them were just completely, behind them. I could tell that they were just like, it's taking too long, I'm going to finish this prayer myself. Because with women, for some reason, it's just something I've experienced. They knock their prayers out far quicker than guys. I've never had one of the boys saying, we don't know, that's not something
Yeah, no, I've noticed that. Yeah.
It's really strange.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I think because they don't know
I don't know why.
Maybe because they don't pray behind the Imam, so they don't know what length should be.
Maybe. That's something. That's a PhD.
Yeah.
Why do women find it the prayer's too long when they pray behind the men?
See, even though our condition is for Jama'at to be allowed, it needs one the Imam and one male. So would that be?
No, that counts as a Jama'at.
Is it
one man with his wife?
Really?
Where would she stand?
Yeah, you consult with Sheikh Harun, but that's what I understood.
Yeah.
Where would she stand? Would she stand right behind?
Yeah, she
or
stands
like-
behind.
No,
She
like-
won't pray stay to the side. They should pray behind. There's this whole debate
Directly
again. Yeah, there's a whole debate about this. Like, does she have to be a certain distance or not? I wouldn't make a big deal. So some are really strict on it. They say basically she's got to be quite a large amount behind. It can't be like one prayer place or something.
Got
Two.
a big house then.
That's I don't agree.
As
But-
opposed to two males where the guy can stand here.
Yeah, so if there's two guys that'd be standing behind, or if one guy
If it's
standing on
one.
your right hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the wife, she'd be praying.
Even
behind.
on a two, she still has to stand. Not here, but
Behind,
Yeah, behind. She stays behind.
What about your parents?
Yeah,
Can they pray?
they pray behind you. That's fine, and that's as I said, that you're encouraged to pray in jama'ahs, whatever the jama'ah is. That's considered jama'ah in terms of reward. Is it the same degree as the mosque? Of course not. It's not. We don't say that. But now, what's the now? And so we've got a person in their workplace as well. But still, it's superior for them to pray in the mosque if it's possible, if it's feasible. And there's different narrations. One says 25. One says 27, and the other one says 26. So there's three narrations. So 25, 26, or 27. وذلك أن أحدهم إذا توضأ, and that is if one of them, i.e. one of the people, they perform wudu إذا توضأ, when they perform wudu فأحسن الوضوء, and then he does his wudu to the best of his ability, i.e. performs it without missing anything out, and also he does it with optimum focus, as much focus as he can. ثم أتى المسجد لا يريد إلا الصلاة, and then he goes to the mosque, and his only intention is to perform the prayer. His intention is not to go meet with his mates, or in the old days someone wanted to ask him, because this is the place that everyone congregated, have you seen something I've misplaced? The Prophet ﷺ, he didn't like people to do that. Come specifically for the mosque in order to, because they knew that was when everyone's congregated. They would have lost such and such a thing. Does anyone know where my donkey's gone, for example? And the Prophet ﷺ say to someone, may Allah never return it to you, because then the mosque becomes something. So you can take that rule and use it from other purposes, like the purpose you go to the mosque is order to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for some dunyawi purpose. So the only point the person comes is so he can put his flyer up in the mosque, for example, or something like that. He should make that's a secondary intention. The main intention is you're going to there to pray your prayer. If you need to do other things, no problem, but don't make it your primary concern. And so also this hadith shows that one should try their best to perform their wudu in the house, not in the mosque, because we try to preserve the water as much as possible, because there's water bills obviously, and so it's better to perform it in home than come to the mosque to save water. That's another point that was obviously even more perceived or even more understood in those times, because water was very thin. And then what people would do, I've lived in places, it becomes a bit of a fiqh issue, but it's not relevant to in England, is that some houses don't have any water, so they go to the mosque to get their water. I don't know if in Pakistan people do this, but they do it. In my local mosque, it's interesting. Two of the mosques in Keighley have wells underneath them. They actually built the mosques, and they're actually a spring. So people, because they don't want to drink the tap water, they come and they collect the water because it's spring water, so that it's a lot healthier. Now, I don't know the fiqh issues on that. Because obviously it's a waqf, it's endowment on that water. So can you use it for personal use? Allah knows best. Sometimes there's issues with those sorts of things. ثم أتى المسجد لا يريد إلا الصلاة. So he comes purely in order to perform the prayer. لا ينهزه إلا الصلاة. The only thing that inspires him, that goes him to get up, is to perform his prayer. And so he rectifies his intention. The whole focus of this hadith is obviously intention, because we're in the chapter on intention. لم يخطو خطوة إلا رفع له بها درجة. He doesn't take one step except that he is raised through that step a degree. You see, the degree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وحط عنه بها خطيئة حتى يدخل المسجد. And a wrong deed is removed from him, and this continues until he actually enters the place of worship. And so this is something that, especially with children, when they come of age, is that when you're taken to the mosque, you tell them these sorts of things. There's a significance of why we're doing them. And so this is also the reason why it's recommended to walk if it's possible, rather than take the car, because every footstep, you be conscious of that, mindful of that I'm taking this step, Allah's raising your rank. I'm taking this other step with my left foot, Allah's removing a sin. And do you realise, son, there's angels around us right now as we walk? Because they say, what does this mean? This means that the angels are asking Allah to raise you a rank, and they're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you a sin. And so do you realise that this is happening, and that the child gains that consciousness, and it gives us consciousness and mindfulness of what we're doing. It's something, even though it's on a very micro level, it's significant. If we were to see the reality of these things, we realise. So the problem is we get so hepped up in, doing things on a macro level that we think, what's the point when it comes to a micro level? Like, for example, simple things like, the situation that's happening in Aleppo at the moment. A simple thing we can do on a micro level is gather people and do a collective dua. Just a simple thing like that. And this recently, we were talking about this in Bradford, like in Keighley today actually, we've got Yvonne Ridley's coming and George Galloway. They're coming to Keighley. I don't know why they chose Keighley. Maybe they're going around other places as well, but they're actually speaking in the city centre there. But we have to use these, because these events happen all the time. Obviously Aleppo is a travesty, but a few years ago it was Palestine, wasn't it? It was when Israel went back into Palestine. And we all get, what's the common, I say, when we have these events, what's the important thing? So first of all, we turn it into an act of worship. So we come together and we maybe perform prayer together as united to show unity, or we make a collective dua. In Morocco, there's specifically 2 duas that they would always recite in times of hardship. There was Dua An-Nasiri, it was by a sheikh called Nasiri, and he would, it's this basically the dua of the oppressed, it's called, and it's like this about 70 lines, and they recite it all in unison together, and they used to recite it in the time of the French occupation. And there's narrations that it would bring down aeroplanes, and the French actually, this is, Allah knows best about that, but the French did definitely ban it. They banned it in mosques because they were frightened of it, because it was unifying people, giving them resolve to stand up against the oppression. And there's another dua which is of Ibn Nahwi, the Moroccan scholar, as well, both of them. It's called Munfarija, it's a poem. And so what's the whole point? Because when these travesties happen around the world, it reminds you of your own travesties, and you get passionate about it. And so it's a means to direct people, because a lot of things that happens at this time is just, why is Allah doing this to us? Why the typical questions come up? Why is there evil in the world? And all these things. And so it's an opportunity when you bring people, not just to do a dua or an act of worship, but to have a talk to address these things, because these things come up, and why is these things happening? And so a scholar, someone educated that people respect, addresses these issues, and then what can we do about it? What can we do about it? We can today. Let's get signatures so we can petition to our local MP. Simple things. If they work, Allah knows best. I don't know. But the obviously, let's get donation collection here right now. We make sure that money gets to the people, or whatever thing. Let's get our heads together. What can we do? Because when in times of trauma, the most important thing is that people feel that there's a way to resolve it. That's what cures a trauma. It's when you feel despair, it's a problem. So 2 situations this happened. For example, in America, in September the 11th, when that happened, they found people weren't traumatised. People were traumatised, but not as much as Hurricane Katrina, if you remember that one. That was in Florida, I think, wasn't it? What was the difference then? There was heavily traumatised people in Hurricane Katrina, whilst September 11th wasn't as bad. What they found was with September 11th, even though the trauma happened, people were running to escape it. They were contacting their family members to talk about the problem and the distress. They were helping others. So when you can do something about the situation, it's a lot easier for you to actually resolve the problem. While in Hurricane Katrina, they basically, people's homes were destroyed, and they put them in these camps, and they basically made them stay there, so they couldn't do anything. So they couldn't go back to their homes to retrieve their back. Because of the danger of going back, they prevented them from even going back to their homes, and they had to stay stationary in the camp, and it made them feel completely hopeless. There was no way of doing anything, and so the trauma set in there. So that's when trauma sets in. And the beauty of the thing, I remember locally in Keighley, a man murdered his wife, and I knew the family. It was incredibly traumatic for the family. But while I was teaching one of the young girls who was in the family, you could see she was definitely distressed. So I said to her, look, take a tasbih and read something for her. You know, she's passed away now. You can do something for her, though. You know, not feel hopeless. Why has Allah done? When you give people purpose, you give them something to do. It removes that trauma and all those questions, because it's not. You're not supposed to. You know, people in a time of trauma, you're not supposed to try to sit down. Well, why has it happened? That's not important. You know, if someone's had a car crash, you get out and you console the person. You empathise with them. You make them feel that someone's there for them. Someone's taking care of them. That's what's important. Regardless if it's their fault or not, you don't stand up. Well, the reason you just had this accident because when you were doing this and did this, you know, the person's going to feel completely this. And that's the biggest mistake we make in these issues. Like, is that we sit down and try to think, why is this happening? That's not what Allah wants from us. He wants, what can we do? This has happened, this has been decreed. What can we do about the situation? And that's how we resolve the trauma. And generally, that once we do things, we feel good about ourselves. Those questions don't even come anyway, because we've found a resolution to the problem. And so that was just a bit off on the tangent, but I think that's poignant for these situations, because the problem is we're exposed to so much today. And you know, second-hand trauma can be more traumatic than first-hand trauma, because in first-hand trauma they had this thing in, I think it was in Ethiopia or something, I can't remember. It's in East Africa, there was some country, and the loved ones of the families that were going, there was like a genocide going on.
Rwanda.
I think maybe Rwanda.
Rwanda, yeah.
There's a genocide, and then their family members who were actually outside the country were hearing about what's going on. They were more traumatised than the people who were in the genocide, because the people in the genocide could actually run and escape. They felt that they got some resolve by actually leaving the trauma. Whilst people who are exposed to it but can't do anything about it, it actually can be even more traumatic, would you believe? And because the media has very responsible, they can really traumatise people. Because we're exposed to all these things, and it makes you feel absolutely hopeless, because you're just sitting back not being able to do anything about the situation. And so people have to be aware of that. And so one of the powers of religion is that you realise you can do something on a micro level. And so just a simple thing like this, coming to the mosque, you know, you feel shameful about a deed you did. You know, you did something and it really hurts you and you don't know what to do about it. Just a simple fact of you going to the mosque and realising with every step you can be forgiven and your sins are being forgiven. When you come to the prayer, you ask Allah and He's always there for you, ready to listen. That's a huge, remedy for people's ills, spiritual ills. And so this is something that someone should be conscious of when they go to the mosque. And the biggest danger of us in religion is that everything becomes ritualised and rote, isn't it? It's so easy. Because that's the nature of the brain. The brain, if it gets used to something, it puts it to the side. And it does that for a reason, because it's so you can learn new learnings. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword, because it means things that are really meaningful in our lives that we do regularly, they become meaningless. And so we have to constantly revise, and all this is about intention. Why are we doing this? Being conscious of this, being mindful of this, even these simple little things. And it gives people hope and it gives people purpose in their life, and that's what we need to survive. فَإِذَا دَخَلَ الْمَسْجِدَ كَانَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ مَكَانَ الصَّلَاةِ. So as long as you are in the mosque, in the prayer place, then you are in prayer, as long as the prayer is holding him. So for example, you come in and you sit down. Now what do they mean by masjid here? Does it mean the mosque or does it mean the prayer place? They debate about this. So some say if you come into the mosque, you sit there and you're waiting for the mosque, as long as you're sitting in your prayer place quietly, waiting, is as if you're in prayer. But the moment you sit down, you start chatting with someone and so forth, then that means you're not in prayer anymore. Or does it mean you're in the mosque? So as long as you're in the mosque, even if you were, the scholars say you should be occupied in some sort of worship, especially when it comes to that period initially. Because it's so easy to, you see someone and see you for a while, it's so easy, even myself. But as long as the prayer, you're waiting for the prayer, to be conscious of that. فإذا دخل المسجد كان في صلاة ما كان الصلاة تسبق والملائكة يصلون على أحدكم ما دام في مجلسه الذي صلى فيه. And the angels are constantly sending prayers upon one of you as long as he's sitting in that place waiting. What they say now, he clarifies what salah is, because people get confused about this. They say, how does Allah send prayers on us? How does the angels send prayers on it? What does it mean? And a lot of them say what the classical one is, the angels sending prayers means they are what?
Making
Asking, but what dua? You usually say it's Allah, the angel's asking forgiveness for you. Whilst Allah's prayer for you is He's asking, He's giving you, He's showing compassion and mercy to you. But that's to limit it, because it says here the angels, what do they say? Allahumma arhamhu. The angels say, have compassion on him. What's compassion? Compassion is an opportunity. Like, when do you really feel compassion? When you've done something wrong to someone and they say, I've let you off. That's the ultimate. Or when do you feel compassion? When you're in a dire situation and you're just begging Allah. This happened to me a few years back. I was in this mosque. They've got rid of them now, but they had these metal poles in the car park space between the car spaces. You know, when it comes to prayer time, they park them really tight the cars. So I was reversing, and there was one space, so I got in there. I came back out, but as I was reversing, I got so close to the pole, and I had a car crash on it a few months ago, and I was like, me and cars, I'll be fishing. And I just might, with that situation where your heart's in your mouth, and you're like, if I move one more inch, please, don't do this. And you just feel like everything's at loss. There's no way out. If I go forward, I'm going to scratch the car. If I go back, and for some reason it just opened up. That's just an example, but situations where you're in absolute desperation, you think, that's when you really feel compassion. And so that's the idea of compassion, is that basically you've got no trick left in the book. It's coming at you, the foreboding calamity, but Allah opens it up. That's when that's the ultimate experience of mercy, I feel, in His creation. Or someone forgives you. So that's the angels are doing that. Think of that, when people feel alone, that they're conscious of angels doing that for them. What sort of... We have to constantly... it's simple things like this, we have to remind people that this is happening if you're doing this, so people don't feel so they're so alone. Allah maghfir lahu, cover up his sins, and don't let him have to suffer the consequences of his sins, because that's what maghfirah is. It's a protection from the consequences, because Allah places in nature laws, consequences. You do 36 in a 30-mile zone, you get a ticket. If you touch fire, you get burned. Life is all consequences, but Allah's forgiveness is where He basically puts a barrier between us and the consequences. If we were to walk out in the morning from that, how many hours we spend outside the house, and be dealt the consequences of everything we did, we wouldn't survive. But Allah's constantly forgiving, covering up that, and that's what maghfirah is. That's the reality of maghfirah. Allah maghfir lahu, Allahumma tub alayh. Oh Allah, turn to him, i.e., what's turning to him? This tawbah, Allah's tawbah for us is that He basically inspires us to come to Him. That's the reality of tawbah. So you have the covering up of the sin, and then the turning to Allah. That's tawbah. You've got maghfirah first, and then you've got tawbah, is where you open yourself back up to your relationship with Allah. And so that's what they pray for those 3 days. So these are 3 du'as we should always ask for: rahmah, maghfirah, and tawbah. These are 3 major things. Ma lam yu'di fihi, as long as he doesn't harm, now literally, as long as he doesn't cause any harm in that place. What do they mean by that? They say, the scholars differ about this. Some say it means he breaks wind. They say, how's that harming? Or adha, alhamdulillah li adhaba anni adha wa afani. When you leave the toilet, you make this praise be to Allah, remove the harm. What's harm? Filth. The reason Allah, after we eat, He takes out the stuff that's not good for us. And so adha, harm here, means, the scholars said, break wind. As long as he's in a state of purity. Other scholars said no, that doesn't mean that, because the next part of the hadith clarifies that point. It means he doesn't do any harm, he doesn't speak of ghiba, or he doesn't do something haram, or strike someone. It even mentions in some commentaries. Do people hit people in mosques? I don't know.
I've experienced it once.
ما لم يحدث فيه, and as long as he doesn't break in it. And so these are, as I said, these are small practical things in our daily life we should be conscious of, and make one another conscious of them. It's very, very important, because we take these things for granted. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك عما نسوم ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكن من الخاسرين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين.